Hi guys, welcome back to the 11th episode now of the Terriers Talk Weekly Review. Um, we're not joined by Jack this week. It's important to note, but he will hopefully be back with us next week if all goes to plan. But yeah, we had two games to cover this week. We're uploading this later than normal, obviously because there's only one game this week in the form of Coventry, which is a massive game. But we'll get onto that. But I mean, we'll take it back to Barnsley on Tuesday night. There was pre-game. It was quite kind of confident that a few players were going to be coming back. We had the Pippa and Vallejo and Campbell were all out for the tie, but Eiting was training, and that Coroma was available. And we'd see JK start on Tuesday night, which was a massive thing for the side. And I mean, he was really good on Tuesday night and just reminded us how good he can be. And to say that that's him not even fully match sharp, I think that's absolutely brilliant for us. So it was a tough game, wasn't it, Jay?
Yeah, it was. I think Barnsley started very quickly, and it's safe to say that Barnsley are a 2016-17 Huddersfield town, and I wish them all the best for the playoffs because we know what it's like. Yeah, very fast start. I think Barnsley had their first shot on target inside 2 minutes. We defended quite well first half, considering we put under unbelievable amounts of pressure, and it's safe to say there probably wasn't much to talk about the first half, just because it was so open and so one-sided. Going into half-time at 0-0 was brilliant, although we were clinging on for dear life. And I think at that point, we expected a huge reaction. And unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case because I think it was a very stale game. From a neutral point of view, it was a good watch because it was good, fast-flowing football from one side. But from Huddersfield Town's fan point of view, I think the lad up the tree was more entertaining than our performance. And credit to that guy because that's a good shift. There's not really much to say until the 65th minute, and that was Barnsley's goal, albeit a good finish from Daryl Dike. But just talk us through Town's defending because we had 4 or 5 stabs to clear the ball, and it's just we say it every single week, Ben. I mean, how embarrassing was that from a Huddersfield Town fan's point of view to watch their team scramble and struggle and not be able to clear a ball?
Don't get me wrong, I'm a massive fan of Daryl Dye, but you can't give any striker in this league that much space. You know, he's brilliant technique to score the goal in the first place. Don't get me wrong, and all credit goes to him for that. But you know, when there's 4 or 5 players around the ball, and not one of them is commanding it to kind of go near the ball, and he's just got obviously an overhead kick is never easy, but he's got probably one of the easiest acrobatic goals that he will ever score in his life in front of him, or should I say behind him. It's absolutely woeful, and we sound like broken records. We sound like broken records saying we sound like broken records every week, but it's absolutely shocking because we're trying to go forward and we're trying to create these kind of movements off the ball going forwards, and you can tell there's work being done going forwards, but defensively every single week it's the same few names making the mistakes. A Richard Keogh mistake and not closing somebody down, Naby Sarful's stop at this point in time. You know, it's frustrating how common a mistake like that is, and I really do think that the defence is something that needs massively looking at in the summer. How we do that, I don't know. What happens, I don't know. Whether we start Romani Edmonds-Green and Critchlow Noble, whether Sarr still stays, what happens, whether we sign somebody new, I really don't. I really don't have a clue at all because it's such a big problem and it's not something that's being addressed as we can see because, we'll get into it. The game against Blackburn, obviously we all know how that ended. To concede a goal like that and then for on Saturday us to play like we did defensively as well, it summarises what needs sorting at the club and what isn't being sorted at the club absolutely perfectly. And I mean, 4 minutes later, there was the introductions of Danny Ward and Sorba Thomas. Sorba Thomas is a player that we spoke about the past few weeks. It's no different to then. Quick on the ball, no end product. And I mean, he's expected, given the fact that he's just come up from non-league. We're not wanting a 20-goal a season player, but on the wages that he's probably getting, if the club have seen something in him, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think he should be in the squad as of yet. I still think it's way too early for him at all to be anywhere near the squad. But I don't think injuries have helped that, and it's massively prematured his development, I think. So whilst I do think that potentially he could be something next season or the season after, I think that potentially the fact that he's done a lack of things this season might potentially get fans turned against him when they see lineups, which is something that you really don't want to see as a fan. Also as a player, he's still a young lad, so seeing potentially him being demotivated to play for the squad could be really damaging to him. But there was some positives from that game. The reintroduction of Carol Lighting, and Jay, you're a massive fan of Carol Lighting.
Yeah, I think he was one of the only positives from a very, very dire night from a Town fan's perspective. He looked very, very sharp, and his passes were extremely incisive. He was picking out balls like he'd not been injured for 3-4 months, like he had been. I think that's a real high for our team, because not only is he a brilliant player, he's just refreshing to see in the squad. And I'm really thankful for that, because it is a joy to watch Carol Lighting, much like it was a joy to watch Emil Smith Rowe. And I just hope that somehow we can either sign him or see a bit more of him. And I've just got to add, you spoke about the ineffectiveness of Sorba Thomas, and just before we move on and kind of mop up and go on to the Blackburn game, there's one player who it just really doesn't sit right with me. He's hugely ineffective, and that's Yaya Sanogo. I just don't know where it's supposed to kick off for him. Like, where is it supposed to get better? And I think for the 70 odd minutes he was on, he was just stood like a tree. Yes, we weren't getting as many balls up to our front men. And I think Tom Clark said that on the post-match show, where he said Town didn't get the ball to frontman enough, and that just sums up how Sanogo was massively ineffective. Yes, we didn't really help him, but he didn't really help himself, and I just don't see him extending. I don't see it getting much better for Yaya. I mean, I could be proved wrong, but I just don't see it. Hi guys, we just had some technical difficulties. We're back, so we'll pick up, and it was a hugely disappointing result at Barnsley at home. I think the fans expected more. I certainly expected more. We've shown that we can fight against the big teams, and Barnsley now are an established team in the Championship. We'll move on to Blackburn Rovers, and I think the team was massive. It was a very, very strong team. There's some huge names coming back into the starting lineup. Pippa starts, Toffolo starts, and Eiting starts. And you look at that and you think, Huddersfield Town before Christmas, it's coming back. And that was cancelled out very early. It was a scrappy start. I think Town were very much on the back foot, and I think it only took 7 minutes for Schofield to produce an absolutely brilliant save, but only for him to undo his work at least a minute later. That was not good to see, was it, Ben? I think that's one of Schofield's big weaknesses, commanding the box from a corner. We saw it at Middlesbrough, where he was let off because it was an offside goal. But you don't want to see that from your number one. Maybe that's a confidence thing, but I don't think that for a professional footballer should not be kind of giving away those errors. It's worrying.
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of Ryan. I really do think that he will go on to be a very good keeper for the club. Um, I think the comments made on social media at times are massively undone. You know, he's still a very very young goalkeeper. If you think about it, like 21 for a goalkeeper is massively young. There are
Yeah,
very few goalkeepers that are starting week in week out at his age. They've been through the academy, etc., etc. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, yeah, we can't criticise Schofield because he's from the youth and whatever. But I'm saying that I think that he's been thrown in at the deep end. Yes, he had that massively good kind of run of games over him before him obviously was sold, and I can understand why he's been put in. But whether he's the keeper for next season, I think he's got a lot to work on, as of the rest of the squad. Um, everyone can see that he struggles to command his box. He either comes out too far, he stays on his line. Yes, his shot stopping is absolutely incredible. And I'd go as far to say that he's one of the best young keepers in the championship at that.
yeah,
But I think that in terms of his box, he needs to get a grip of it a bit more with it. It needs to be a bit more vocal because I think it's only gonna cost us as we go further and further along. Obviously, we're near the end of the season now, so it don't make sense to change it because if you take him out of the team, that's not going to help his confidence at all. But I mean, that's just not the only negative of the game. I wish we could stop it there and say we were filled with positives after that. The team have kicked on after a poor start. 7 minutes in, and 22 minutes in, it's again Blackburn with a goal. It's the defence again. I don't want to just specify certain players because it isn't, but just the entire defence has been for the past few games at times absolutely woeful.
yeah,
And if we're wanting to, I don't even want to say go and try and be a playoff side at this point because that defence is struggling in a relegation battle and don't look fit to be in a relegation battle. They look League One at best at times, if that. You know, Toffs, yes, he's just come back and he's still not 100%, but the defence is cut like butter. Toffs has gotten the better of way too easy, and it's an easy tap in for Breton, I believe his name is.
Brereton, I think it was. Yeah,
Brereton, yeah. He's poor. There's so many chances again for us to do something. We lack that leadership at the back. Yeah, Hogg is obviously brilliant in the midfield. He commands the midfield, and we look way better on the pitch with Hogg in the side. But defensively, we are still missing that leader, and I think that we just haven't been able to replace Schindler. Because I'm not saying that we need to sign a captain, but I'm saying we need to sign somebody that's very vocal in the defence and can control a line. Keogh, I think, has tried that with him being the more experienced of the 3 or 2, as it normally is. But I just don't think it's working. And I think that the 4-3-3 with Sarr and Keogh at the back, it don't work. Pippa and Toffolo aren't good enough defensively, I don't think, for a 4-back. So I think we need to potentially go back to the 3. But then that potentially means what happens up front. And a name that would be potentially worrying about where he stands in the team is Josh Karoma. And 45 minutes in, we showed what Josh Karoma can really do, didn't we, Joe?
yeah. I think it was the two players that we've been missing vitally. In Carol Lighting and Josh Corona. I think Carol played a lovely ball into a bit further up the pitch to Corona, and it's all his work. I think he cuts in, he goes back out, he cuts in, he goes back out, and he puts a brilliant ball in towards Lewis O'Brien. I think it was tapped in by a Blackburn player, but that is just the quality that we've been missing. It's straight up, it's quality. I don't believe anyone else has that intent to take on defenders as much as Croma does. I think you've got Rolando Aarons, but we don't see much of him, and Aaron Rowe, but there's only a certain amount you can do because he's up and down that left-hand side or the right-hand side. and you'd expect a reaction after half time, like we always do. But 53 minutes in, it's just one individual again letting the side down, and I really, really hate to say this because I'm a fan of Naby Sarr, but in these situations you can't defend him at all. He gets caught out up the pitch near the halfway line. He taps the ball out for a throw in. A Blackburn player throws it up the field. Sarr gets caught out, and he's like a tractor. He is. Him and Keogh were possibly the slowest partnership I've ever seen in a Huddersfield Town shirt. It's worrying. There's no intent to commit, and he's just like a lost puppy. And Armstrong gets an easy second goal. He's in the right place, and then 2 minutes later, Sarr and Keogh again link up and provide the assist for Blackburn, albeit a very sharp finish from Gallagher. But it's the same thing. 3 individual errors, 3 goals that could have been prevented, and we're in the game. And then the 59th minute, Toff, Sarr, Keogh, they all look defeated. They've gone through the defence like butter again. Easy tapping for Armstrong, and he gets his hat-trick. It's the same thing. And we're sat here sounding like broken records, but actually it's reality. We're just speaking about what's happened, and it's every single week. And you physically cannot defend a team who's committing the same mistakes every single week. These lot are professional. You know, if it was a league, if it was another 9 side, you'd be, that's fine. We can work on it. But these lot, they get paid to play in that position and do that job. And yeah, maybe 1 or 2 games you have an off day. But in the Championship, the most physical league in the world, the league where you get exploited the most, you cannot afford to commit these mistakes. And I think the only one positive of the second half was a moment, again, of individual brilliance from our saviour this season, Josh Koroma. Says a lot when he's come back from injury, and in 1 game he's now our top scorer, doesn't it? I mean, best moment of the day, apart from the final whistle. It's brilliant from Koroma, and that's what he does best. He cuts in and he finds that far corner. It's a brilliant goal, isn't it, Ben?
I mean, just touching on what you were saying, I say it quite a lot, and I do truly believe that the Championship is the hardest league in the world simply because of what is on stake. Yeah. You've got hundreds of millions of pounds of Premier League money, and then at the top end of the league, the middle, you've still got about 30-40 million per season in the Championship. That goes down to 1 or 2 million in League One. And after the COVID scenario, every single team is hoping that they are getting that 30-40 million next season because they will have massively high Championship wages. And because of the COVID situation, it's so important that players and teams stay up. And at the moment, we don't look like a team that's fine doing that. And that's the thing that hurts the most. The season ticket things came out the other week, and I don't want to sound pessimistic because I'm not really like that. But if I'm going to spend 129, 200 quid, if I hadn't had a season ticket this season on a season ticket, I'd be wanting my team to be showing me every single week that there's at least some kind of movement in there. We're losing 5-2 against Blackburn. Don't get me wrong, they have some absolutely brilliant individual players, Harvey Elliott, Armstrong, etc., etc. But that is people's hard-earned money that they're not going to get back. And yes, I do sound pessimistic, but when I'm seeing Naby Sarr do the same thing, Richard Keogh do the same thing, even Toffolo at times and Pippa, I'm seeing them do the same things week in, week out defensively. And it needs addressing because if we don't do something about it, I think next season we are going to be in for the 3rd or 4th season in a row that is going to be a very, very long season and a very difficult season to watch, and it will turn people away. This weekend, I mean, it moves on to it perfectly. Nothing of any more positives happened in the Blackburn game apart from the final whistle. We move on to Coventry this weekend. That is a home game, correct me if I'm wrong here, it'd be our last home game of the season.
Last home game. Yep.
That'd be that'd be the biggest game of our season. Fans back in the stadium or fans in the stadium, everybody would be at that game and wanting to see us a massive, massive performance. And if we saw a performance like we did against Blackburn, against Barnsley, they would get booed off every single interval. There would be boos, because that's a team that don't want to look like they want to stay in this league at the moment. And Coventry have proved now that I think they are mathematically safe. It's such a big game, and it's one that could potentially keep us up, or it could potentially send us down, because I really don't see us getting anything at Reading. But that's a case of next week's episode. Stay tuned. But the Coventry game, there needs to be a response from the first minute. I can't be seeing 15 minutes in we start kicking on. From the 45th minute we start kicking in. From the first minute to the last, we need to go out and we need to go and perform, because that will be the club's next 12 months in 90 minutes. Because if we still mathematically can go down, it's unlikely. Bookmark that for when we do go down this season, after Derby gets 6 points and Rotherham win every single game they've got left. But I really do think that it's not over yet, and I think that this weekend is so big for the club and for players, because there'll be players that will be playing for moves away from the club.
Yeah.
For example, Bakuna and Benza, if they want to play this weekend, that will be their last massive chance, really, to show they've got what it takes to perform at the high level that some of the clubs are sniffing about them. League One clubs, League One clubs, will be wanting them Benza. I've seen the likes of Fenerbahce, Besiktas, Rangers, all looking at Bakuna. If he drops a 5 out of 10 performance and walks around the pitch for 90 minutes, they're going to sniff away and they're going to go and have a look at somebody else, because they have the money to do that. And that puts in a massively bad situation. So we need the best of every player this weekend. And I'm sorry I've kind of rambled a bit, Jay, but would you say I'm in the wrong?
No, not at all. And I think if I said to you, Ben, in December, that in 4 or 5 months we'd be talking about a relegation scrap and having to stay up on the final day, which is basically what it's going to be. If results don't go our way, you'd laugh at me. And I just think we need to take a long look in the summer to who fits our identity and who needs to go. Long story short, who needs to stay and who needs to go. Because next season, we've got fans back, and I can assure you our fans will not take any of it. If we get beaten 7-0 at home, 5-2 away, all that's happened this season in front of our fans, the team's in trouble, the manager's in trouble, because we expect, and this is the least that we expect fight, we expect desire, passion, playing for the shirt, and some players, they're not playing for the shirt. And I think hopefully we're going to be doing an end of season review, and hopefully at the end of the season we can say this player fits our identity, perfect, or this player doesn't. And we'll see in the summer. It's going to be a big summer for Huddersfield Town. We can see who Phil brings in and whether they fit our identity. And hopefully next season these episodes will be a bit more positive, because I'm sure you'd agree, since we started in January, it's been a very, very torrid time for the club. And hopefully we can have a big resurgence and maybe do a Barnsley. But that's for another conversation. And I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode 11, because we've reluctantly covered the Blackburn defeat and the Barnsley defeat, and we've gone through what happens next at Coventry. And I just hope the next time we release an episode, there's smiles on our faces, and that we are safe, and that we have our championship status. But until then, thank you very much for watching.
Well, I mean, just one more thing, actually, about the Coventry game. Obviously, it's not going to be covered on Twitter through the social media accounts, because there is a massive social media boycott amongst clubs. Some media outlets are doing it, but there will be no coverage of the Town game on Twitter. And part of me thinks that's that could potentially be for the better, because for the past 6 months, the Huddersfield Town admin have been bombarded with abuse due for the team. So if we don't get a result, I'm kind of glad that there is that social media boycott, but at the same time, I'm glad that it's happening anyway, because it's such a major issue. But I think that pretty much is now the wrap of it all up. So I mean, thank you for watching us go on. After Jack will hopefully be back. Sorry, after this week. To, like Jay said, hopefully us reviewers staying up. If not, you get to see us preview Reading, with us biting our fingernails for a full 40 minutes of a podcast. But thank you for watching. Please do like, and as always, share it around. We are so close to 100 subscribers, and we have been for a while. So I mean, if you want to make our week and see Huddersfield Town stay up, I had a rumour that we stay up if you subscribe. So I'd get subscribed, and to be honest. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.